Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our 100th episode of the Utah Stories Show. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Rich Markosian. If you're rather new to this program, we have been covering the big issues that affect the quality of life in Utah. We've been trying to dig deeper and ask the how and the why things are the way they are, and ask why people think the way they do. And we're trying to bridge the political gap that currently exists here in Utah. But our main emphasis is to present the voices of local Utah. And we were doing that like gangbusters before COVID hit. We had guests in the studio. We had something like 50 different guests over the years, everywhere from people running the city's planning department, Nick Norris. We had people talking about the trail systems and the growth of transit, such as Soren Simonson. We've talked about depression, and why it's so prevalent here among teenage kids, and suicide. Big issues that really impact a lot of people that aren't really discussed and talked about in the mainstream media. And I'm very pleased to have on the program today Dan Farr. He went out and produced the most successful convention that has ever existed in Utah. It's Salt Lake City's FanX. I had a really wonderful conversation with him. We talked about what he had to do to pull off this convention the first year, how he got the celebrities to come, how he got all sorts of people to buy into the energy of the formerly, Comic-Con environment, and just all these people descending on Salt Lake, dressing up, thousands and thousands of people. If you haven't seen it, it is absolutely spectacular what he's managed to tap into and create in downtown Salt Lake City. And it's about to happen in just another week here in downtown. So without further ado, my conversation with Dan Farr. Dan, thanks so much for being on the program.
Wow, thank you. I'm flattered that you guys would have me on here, and it's been fun to hear your story a little bit as we were kind of getting ready here and hear about all the great things you've done. You've been quite the entrepreneur and promoter yourself. You've done some great things.
Yeah, well, I can identify with the huge difficulty in getting something off the ground, getting it out to the public, and then getting the public to buy in and want to be a part of it. So I think it was the first or the second year we got tickets, press tickets to go in and check it out. And I was absolutely blown away by how the line of people was wrapped all the way around the Salt Palace, and everybody was dressed up, and the energy that your festival produced, it was just, I just had never seen anything like it, and I didn't understand it. I mean, how did you get it to be so incredibly successful by the second year?
Well, I'll say this. The big thing about it is I had attended other ones like it, Wizard World shows or other conventions like it. And as I attended them, I was actually a vendor with my last business, and I think we'll probably talk about it a little later on. But as a vendor, I got pulled into the energy of the events. It's like you just go to the events and you just feel how excited people were, and it was fun to meet the celebrities or the comic book artists or creators or see the fun pop culture vendors and all that stuff. There's just so much creative energy there, and I've always been drawn to creative energy, and so this really became kind of a mecca of creative energy. And as I started attending them, I became friends with the promoters, the people that produce the Wizard World shows, and I said to them, I said, hey, you guys, and my wife and I were there together one time talking in a hotel lobby one night with these guys, and said, why don't you do a show in Utah? The people in Utah would love to have that. And he said, you know what? We actually did investigate Utah. We sent somebody out, and we were able to kind of see the area there. And we thought, it could be okay, but we didn't really feel like it was the right time and place for us to do a convention. And so they just decided to hold off, and so I tried to encourage them a couple of times, even talked about partnering with them, and they just said, no, the time's not right. So we just went out on our own, and we worked with the Utah Media Group, and they handled all of the logistics, because they had been running a show called Geeks, Gaming Electronic Expo.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of had that flavor of what a comic convention could be, but it was a gaming-centric show. But it just felt like it could be so much more if we brought in the celebrities and brought in the comic book people and comic book vendors and all of that. And so I talked to them about partnering, and ultimately they said, well, we don't necessarily want to be a partner, but we'll be your vendor for this. We'll work with you and help you do it. And so we did our first show in 2013, in the September 2013. We actually had a spring date planned, but when we kind of looked at things, we realized we just needed a little more lead time, and so we moved it to September. And we just knew that this market here that just had so much potential. You know, just living here, knowing that we all love pop culture. One of the anecdotes that I used to use to talk to celebrities and their managers and say, hey, this is why you want to come to Utah, was that when we had opened like a Harry Potter movie or any kind of Hobbit or whatever it may be, when we opened those movies, the Utah theaters led the nation. If it wasn't number one, it's in the top 10.
They led the nation for turnout and
for the
dressing
weekend.
up probably
as
well.
Yeah, dressing up, but also just that opening weekend. So we knew that the culture here loved it. And so we planned to do the show, like I mentioned, was going to be a spring show, decided to push it off to September, have a little more lead time. And we announced that we were doing it, and social media started going wild. And that was back in the day when Facebook would let the organic nature of social media happen on its own, and you didn't have to pay for it. It just, if friends wanted to share stuff with other friends, it would get shared, and everybody would see a post, and so we'd get a lot of traction. And then we started announcing some of the celebrity guests. We announced, like Lou Ferigno and Kevin Sorbo and a few other people. And when we announced them, people went nuts. They're like, wow, they're like, hey, we wanted to have this here for so long. I can't believe we're actually going to get one here. And just that support that came from the community was very encouraging. So we thought, well, let's, we'll put tickets on sale, and then we'll kind of see how things go from there. So we offered the tickets up for sale, and people started buying them right away. Like, we know that a lot of times with events, and you would know this from your experience, a lot of times people like to wait to the very last minute. And it's very common, and especially common here in Utah, but people like to wait to get their tickets. Yeah. Because they want to keep their options open or whatever it may be. And so for us to see the front end kind of building up like it was, we're thinking, wow, this is, there's something here. And so we started. That
was in 2013 before anybody had even seen it or knew what it was really about, besides Lou Ferigno was going to be there.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing is just funny. A lot of people didn't know what it was. We'd run into people and say, at that time we were using the name Comic-Con, and people would say, oh, is that a comedy show? Is that going to be a bunch of comedians there?
I had no idea.
Yeah, people didn't know. Yeah. There were some of the, the super fans that were familiar with what the name meant. But
because you said there was 80 Comic-Cons around the nation
was
at that time.
When we started, about 80 or 100 different events like ours that were going around the nation, and we started to kind of use social media as a way to educate people on what was happening. Because one thing we knew is that as we attended some of these other events in other cities, it seemed to bring out just the super fans. It wouldn't necessarily reach the broad population. And it's like, well, if we can reach the broader population, this is something that's interesting to everybody. If Harry Potter is going to be the #1 movie in the theater in the nation when it opens here, whatever theaters have it, there's something going on here. We really like Harry Potter. We really like The Hobbit.
And Halloween here is so massive.
Halloween's huge.
Everybody's dressing up, and everybody's wanting to experience the haunted houses. Like, I didn't know that was a Utah thing. Yeah. That so many people just line up for the haunted houses here, like no other place on earth. And so it's like you just put 2 and 2 together, I guess, and you kind of begin to see that this is the place.
This is the place. This is definitely the place for pop culture. There were some other things, information. I think somebody did a survey on where the nerdiest state in the nation. I think that came out within a year or so of us doing the first event, that Utah got voted as the nerdiest state in the nation, which was
really
great. Thank you. Yeah.
That makes sense. But, you go to Comic-Con, you see some of those definite hardcore fan nerds, and the costumes are just, it's the only thing I could I could compare it to is Burning Man,
Yeah.
where they spend all year making their costume for Burning Man. Obviously, that's a completely different demographic,
Yeah.
but it's like the effort that goes into these costumes. These
But you explain the passion. I mean, the fact that it's just like if you look at people at a jazz game and how excited they get about it, and people have different things that just really motivate them, whether it's music or literature or whatever it may be. They get so passionate about it, and so having a chance to bring all that together into one place was really what it was about. But we knew that we had to reach past just the super fans. You know, we had to get it out to the mainstream, let more people know what was happening. And so we had some good media partners. We were able to get out in the press. It did a lot of, we had Lou Ferigno, for example, when he was coming the first show, he was going to come the first days of the week and actually do some press. And so we took him around. We took Manu Bennett, I think, was another guest that we had. Took him around to all the news stations, and they all got on the radio and the TV and everything, and
Nice.
you know, just helping to get the word out of what the event was. But here's what was kind of interesting: the flaw, you know, the way that it kind of developed is I went around to these Wizard World shows as a vendor for my last company, and as I got engaged with it, I started meeting some of the celebrity managers, the people that would book guests to the shows, and also some of the celebrities. And as I did that, I told them, said, well, hey, we're going to do one of these shows in Utah. Are you interested? And, you know, I'd use that anecdote and, you know, just say that the movies are popular and we think it's going to be good. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll try it out. And they knew that I was coming from a business background. That helped too, because they knew that I had some funding behind me, and I wasn't, because a lot of the celebrities, they've gone into new conventions like this, and they get there, and instead of there being 5,000 or 10,000 people that they were told would be there, there's 500 people, and it just, you know, it doesn't work out. They don't get paid the way they're supposed to be paid, and so they're very skittish, and the managers especially are very skittish about sending talent to new shows. And so we started talking to them about, you know, coming to our show and just tell them how great Utah is, and we're able to sell the first couple of people that we announced, and tickets started selling. Then we decided, well, let's bet bigger. Let's start bringing in a few more guests. And one of the guests that we were kind of wondering, you know, do we bring in Stan Lee or William Shatner, somebody like that? And at first we were telling the talent managers that we were talking with, that, hey, you know, I think we can anticipate 10,000 people at the show, and maybe 15 if it goes really well. And I remember one time I had the manager of William Shatner and some of the other people who were working really close with me. He said, yeah, he says, just kind of dial your expectations back. You know, this is first year, Dan. Don't expect too much. You know, so when I was saying 15,000, I said, you know, maybe even 20,000. You know, come on, Dan, just dial it back a little bit. So anyways, the tickets are selling. I went back to this manager and said, hey, you know, we've sold a couple thousand tickets this far out. It's actually pretty good. And he's like, yeah, that actually is good for these shows, because people usually wait to buy. And so we started talking about bringing in William Shatner.
Yeah.
And so it came to, you know, we'd been selling tickets for about a couple months. It came to early July, mid-July, right around there, mid to early. And we announced William Shatner. And so tickets went from like 3,000 to 4,000 tickets sold. It's like we're selling 1,000 tickets a day. And I went to a convention where one of the other managers was there, and one of the other celebrity managers, I said, yeah, hey, we're at 9,000 tickets sold now. She's like, wow, really? Yeah, 9,000. The next day, hey, we're at 10,000. You know, just kind of be able to see it go up. And so I think when people saw that we were betting big on the celebrities, and I think we probably had, by the time we announced William Shatner, we maybe had 10 or 12 celebrity guests committed to the convention. Then after that, you know, we kept selling tickets. Then we had at the Southtown Convention Center, there's 5 halls there, and we had one hall committed to, and the second one we had the option on of the 5, and that would give us about 100,000. Well, let's see, about 100,000 square feet. You know, maybe 90,000 square feet. As we started selling tickets, we came and we said, well, we want the 3rd hall. And then we came back and said, we want the 4th hall, you know, after William Shatner got announced. And then after that, we were realizing, wait a second, we're still selling tickets and we're this far away from the event. So we went back to them and said, we want the 5th hall. They, well, we've got somebody already committed to that hall. And so we started looking and said, what about downtown? And they worked it out. They got us downtown. And so when we announced that we're moving downtown, that became another inflection point. So obviously when Shatner was announced, well, when we made our first announcement was a big deal. We announced Shatner, another big deal. We announced that, hey, we're too big for the Southtown Convention Center. We need to move downtown. It started selling tickets again. And, you know, pretty soon we got 20,000 tickets sold. And then as we got to the week of the convention, there's a whole other backstory on this, but I had been courting Stan Lee for months, trying to get him to come out to the convention. So we were trying to, you know, from early on, we were talking about trying to get him to come out, and he had booked another convention. Then after the fact, he canceled that convention. But we, you know, he wasn't canceling it for us. He just had canceled it maybe 3 or 4 weeks before we had our event. And so I just kind of kept persistent with the manager. And so I, as I mentioned before, Lou Ferigno was going to come out here for a press, you know, a little press tour prior to the event. And I told Lou, but he said, I got to go back to Venice. I've got Stan Lee that's going to be giving me a Lifetime Achievement Award in Venice on Monday before I come out on Tuesday. I said, Lou,
opportunity.
We want Stan at our show. Will you help us get him? He said, sure, I'll do that. And so he mentioned to Lou, Lou mentioned to Stan, you got to come out to the show. They've already been selling a bunch of tickets. And I actually reached out to the manager, told him, hey, we had, I think at that time we had 25,000 tickets sold or 30,000, something like that. We were right around that number. Remember going from 10,000 people to 25 to 30,000 tickets sold, you know, because there's a whole other math question about how you really count people for an event, which people would say, okay, a ticket that could be 3 people, you know, or 3, you know, when you count numbers, they could say that's 3 people because they come 3 days. And we're just saying, no, this is tickets sold. So these are each individual people, whether they come 3 days or 1 day, it's still individual people. So they knew it was real. And so I got a call Tuesday morning. Hey, we want to bring Stan out. We can't get him there till Saturday. We can get an early flight on Saturday and get out there. And if you want us to come out, we'll be there. And it's like, yes, we got. Nice. It's so exciting. Became another inflection point. This was a big deal. And we got to announce Stan Lee is coming out. And just the serendipity of the way everything came together.
I didn't know that was it. Like, so you get the celebrities based upon the momentum of ticket sales based on getting other celebrities.
For the
first one.
Then it's
just a snowball.
Yeah, for the first one, that's exactly what happened. You know, now it's based on the fact that historically we've had fantastic shows for the celebrities, that the fans are great to the celebrities, and that means that they buy their photographs and autographs, you know. And so if they or the photo ops and autographs. So if they go in and a celebrity comes out and let's say they're used to making, well, I'll give an idea. I think Lou Ferigno was maybe used to making maybe 10 grand at a convention like that. I think he made 30 to 40 at our first show.
Wow.
So he just did much better than what, you know, than what he anticipated. And that happened across the board with multiple celebrities. Stan Lee, he did great. You know, there's a really fun story with Stan Lee when he was out here that I think people would love to hear this is when he came out, he couldn't get out till about 1 o'clock. And a whole other story, but basically the governor picked him up at the airport. When he took him off, they stopped the plane on the tarmac. Stan got off the plane. Governor picked him up, brought him straight to the convention center because he was only getting in at 1 and he's going to be done at 7. So it was a very short day, relatively speaking. And so we got him there, and he was so slammed with people that wanted autographs and photo ops from him that he was like, hey, you know, the manager, I don't have time. We really don't have time to get him into a panel because he's got all these people waiting to see him, and we want to make sure everybody gets to meet him and gets a photo op or whatever they want with him before we have to go and before the convention ends. But at the same time, there's 3,500 people in the ballroom. We want Stan. We want Stan. You know, just, I mean, and people came to me, and I didn't know that this was going on. Then people tracked me down at the show, and they said, Dan, we're about to have a riot. This is crazy. You've got to help us get Stan in there, or this thing's going to go the people are going to be just disappointed. They're going to go nuts. I'm afraid it's going to be just crazy. And so they grab me, and I go over and I talk to the manager. I go, hey, you've got everybody lined up in that room. We really need Stan in there. And he's like, yeah, but look at all these people here. I can't do it. I said, oh, come on, please. You got to do something. He says, okay, 25 minutes. We'll do it. We'll do it for 25 minutes, and we'll get back here, and we'll hopefully get everybody else in. And so we take Stan through the crowd, and we get him over there, and he's just, you can just tell he's just excited about what's going on.
He wasn't overwhelmed?
He's
like 80 years old at this point?
He would have probably been, he could have been even, 90 or 89 or 90,
wow,
I think.
Really?
Yeah,
Man.
probably around that time. Because he made it 95, I believe. But
did he? Yeah.
Yeah. So he, anyway, so he gets up there, and they go into the main room. The crowd erupts. It's crazy. The manager, he looks at me and he goes, can you believe this? He goes, I've never seen anything like this. This is just crazy. And he gets his cell phone out, and he's recording. He walks up on the stage and he's recording the audience. And he's like, and he kept looking back at me like, Dan, this is crazy. Because they had not received that sort of reception when they've done the other conventions. They would have.
So the ballroom is packed with 3,500 people.
They're used to, when I was talking to Lou before the show, and I said, what size room do you think you need? Oh, like 500 seats would be fine. Well, we put him in the 3,500 seat room and filled it. The same thing with Stan. Stan was used to doing conventions that he'd go in there and maybe fill 500 seats in a room or something like that, and people are excited and whatever, but nothing like that. And so
the
next time Stan...
And the energy just feeds on itself, doesn't it?
Energy
it just gets
so
bigger and bigger.
Oh, it was so big. But just to see that manager who had taken him to, maybe hundreds of other shows, to look at me and just be awestruck by what was going on there.
Like, this is off the rails.
This
insane.
is off the rails crazy. And that's just typical. I mean, what I'm saying is that's just typical for this market, these people. These fans.
Well, what can you say about the culture of Utah that lends itself to this whole experience? What is it about? I kind of think it's like more the suburbs of Utah. It's not the city urbanite folks. It's like they come out of the woodwork to go to FanX. What is it? What is it about our particular culture that lends itself to this?
I have to say, I've theorized on this a lot.
Yeah.
It's like I want to know why.
Because that's what I want to know, the how and the why.
Exactly.
That's what we write about.
Well, okay, couple things. I do think the Sundance Film Festival has done a good job of bringing celebrities in that people know that these people are here, but you can't touch them. You know what I mean? They're untouchable. Yeah. They're here, and you get to see them on the news, and you think, okay, we've had these great celebrities that have come into town, but
they're very sheltered. I'd go up and cover Sundance, and you'd see all the people protecting the gates, so you don't get
you don't go in
we saw Mariah Carey, and everybody's screaming Mariah, and she doesn't even like bat her eye toward the crowd. She's just beelining.
Yeah, she got a whole entourage around, and you're not gonna get in. I walked past Keanu Reeves one time with a small entourage he had up there, and that was kind of fun. He walked by and, hey, just he was cool,
he probably
nice.
acknowledges.
But just it was nothing. It's like, I'm sure if I tried to talk with him, maybe somebody would have stepped up and said something. But he was just moving kind of. But if you move quickly through, I think that's one thing that a lot of them can do, is if they move quickly through the crowds, they can do it. But I think that's. I think the film festival has created a tease. For celebrities, and this is maybe not the best analogy, but we've created the please. We get people where they.
But why do people worship celebrities to that degree here? Like, well, I guess that's why
we do know that fantasy literature is also really popular. We've got a lot of great fantasy writers here in Utah. World-renowned fantasy writers that are based out of Utah.
Yeah, we sure do.
I think fantasy is really popular. I can look on Google Trends, and you look up things like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and Utah leads on the Google Trends. So it's basically average searches per state or whatever on those terms. And Utah leads in a lot of the pop culture ones, and Doctor Who and Sherlock.
Not
and
necessarily the Marvel comics,
it's
or
not
the
just Marvel. Well, I mean, obviously we do get a lot of Marvel and some, DC as well. We don't lead in every single topic. Like Star Trek, I think we're maybe number 3.
really.
I think
in the whole country.
Yeah, I think we're third, and but we still, the fact that we're even up there with everybody else shows just that. And so, so let's get back to Sundance is one thing. I think that we have a propensity to really love fantasy and
escapism.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is just there are a lot of people that don't have other things to do. If they're not partiers, what are they going to do? And I think enjoying media is something that helps a lot in that area. And so I think those are the 3 main factors. I think, the predominant religion helps produce a lot. I think there's a lot of fans that are...
You have non-partiers.
Yeah, non-partiers,
who
exactly.
want to have fun.
Yeah.
And a clean, environment where you're not considered going off the rails or doing something wrong.
Right.
And celebrity worship lends itself to that.
Yeah. And, in a way, maybe it also has to, with the culture of having leaders of the church there are a lot of people, I mean, those leaders have become celebrities in and of themselves. I knew a family of one of the presidents of the church, and he went, they were on a family trip driving south, and so he tells his daughter, said, go in and just see what's going on in the restaurant before I go in, just because we're going to go get lunch, just see if things are okay. And he goes in, the daughter goes in, okay, it's quiet, so somewhere mid Utah, small place. Okay, let's go in. And then all of a sudden, this busload of people from a BYU tour or something show up, and he ends up shaking everybody's hand. Doesn't get a chance to sit down and eat. And so
really?
It is, kind of people like, they look up to these people, and I think that's what we do with the celebrities. I think we look up to them for the characters that they become.
Yeah.
And I think we connect that. Like I always say, William Shatner is Captain Kirk. He's not. There's no Captain Kirk, right?
There was a Saturday Night Live skit where he goes and tells these Trekkies, get a life, man.
Get a life. Go on, man. Yeah.
I'm not Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
You need to have you ever had a girlfriend before?
Yeah.
And he's telling these dorks off.
Yeah.
And oh man, that was hilarious, because I mean, I just think there's all these different levels and different ways people worship celebrities.
Yeah.
And some people, I think, are there for the celebrities themselves, but then some people get so wrapped up in the characters that they obsess over the characters, and the fantasy becomes so ingrained in their life that you wonder, are these people attached to reality like most people should be?
Well, I think it. I think they are more than they may appear when they're at the convention.
They just want to be
I think
in that moment and have a full experience.
I think they do. I think they take the time, and they know that Captain Kirk is. I mean, William Shatner is not Captain Kirk. They know that.
Yeah.
But during that time, they want to. It's like you know how this is. Some people can watch a Marvel movie or a Harry Potter movie and just say, that is the dumbest thing in the world. There's no such thing. People can't fly, or people can't do that stuff, and it almost irritates them because they can't suspend their disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the other people. When I look at Doctor Who, for example, I think that's something that causes people to suspend their disbelief more than anything. I think or one of the most areas where you just have to kind of just say, okay, everything can fit inside this this phone booth, or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's stuff that you just have to just kind of let it go and just enjoy it and just go with the moment and not worry about, do these things add up? No, we don't care.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm just going to go with it.
And it's just pure escapism when you do that, when you engage in that.
And that's the thing is that one of my biggest surprises of doing the conventions is the Doctor Who fans are some of our best fans, but probably one of the smallest demographics. I mean, if you look at Doctor Who versus Marvel, Doctor Who is just a tiny sliver
Yeah, I noticed
people.
that. I
Yeah.
noticed there's some people who are just absolutely nuts about Doctor Who, and
Yeah.
and I honestly haven't watched it since I was like 12 years old, and there's a whole nother spin-off and so
Yeah.
much more to that. So you found, but by booking these specific celebrities, you're hitting different little slivers of demographics
Yeah.
where there's some hardcore fandom out there in Utah. So you're just like harvesting something that's there.
And but a lot of it is it's getting them, those people that are maybe the hardcore fans, but also getting them to bring in the fringe fans.
Yeah.
Because they're
Call up their friends and say,
exactly.
"Yeah, I'm already going to go because I want to get Doctor Who's autograph. Would you
Yeah.
want to come out with me and we'll make a
Right.
night of it?" And
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Just really just having that experience together, and because there's a lot of people, there's different levels of fans, right? Obviously you have the super fan that just like you're saying, maybe they want to cosplay, maybe they don't cosplay, but they're just so into the different stories or whatever it may be. But then you have the people on the other end of the spectrum that they maybe would enjoy a film once in a while and that's it. And then you have everybody in between. I kind of see once you hit the point where you're buying T-shirts for your fandom you like, I think you're definitely in the fan group.
yeah.
When you have a Doctor Who or Marvel T-shirt or anything like that.
And so this cosplay element of it, I'm not so sure I fully understand it, but it's like they don't just dress up; they actually play out the character,
Yeah.
and they get together and they have like a social, like where they're dressed as the character. Do you understand what it is?
Well, I do to the extent that, I mean, there's obviously more. I'm learning more about pop culture every day. There's always something new to learn, especially when you walk around the convention, you see these characters. There's very few people I think that can name every character they see, if there is that. It's like, oh, this is from this game, this is from this, anime film, this is for whatever. But there is cosplay. Yeah, the truest form of cosplay is where somebody will dress up as Batman, for example, and when you talk to them at the event, hey, can I get a photo with you? It's, yes, you can get a photo with me. Or something,
yeah, they're just in character.
They're in
the whole
character.
time-
You're
the whole
not,
time.
and you recognize, hey, you're my banker, aren't you? I'm Batman. It's like, no, you're not gonna get that personality, person behind it, because they're taking on the play percentage part of it. You got the costume and you got play. That's cosplay.
Got it.
And so,
Huh.
so they're in full character. Then you got a lot of people that just love to dress up, and I'd say the majority of the people at the event are not necessarily pretending to be the character full on. You can at least get them to break character enough to ask them, what they do in their day.
But the people who've been
Yeah.
preparing
Yeah.
like for the whole year
Yeah.
of their costume, their outfit, they're usually the ones
Well,
in character.
I think that's not necessarily the case. I mean, the ones that could still prepare the whole year are just, they're performers. And you think about this in the sense that and people ask me like, hey, do I have to wear a costume to the event? And I'll say, no, you don't have to, but be prepared. If you wear a good one, you're not going to get a chance to walk around and see everything. You're going to be stopped every 5 minutes or every 5 seconds because somebody's going to ask you for a picture. And so plan on a day at the convention where you're dressed in your plain clothes so you can get around and see the convention. But then when you're in costume, you're going to be stopped and you're going to be doing photos the whole time. So it's a chance for people to showcase what they've done.
Yeah, and maybe feel like a celebrity if they
They
dress
are.
up the right way.
Absolutely. And that happens all the time, and people go through and they catch that energy. One thing I can kind of liken it to is I've never ever been a performer. I mean, for me, performing in front of people, I mean, I played athletics, I played basketball, I played at junior college level. So I mean, in that sense, I guess a performer. But as far as getting on stage and performing anything, oh my gosh, that was just so alien to me. Well, this year, my daughter, or I guess last year before Christmas, my daughter wanted to do Christmas Carol at the Draper Theater there, and she says, Dad, you got to do it with me. And then one of the guys that plays Scrooge, he's a neighbor, and he says, oh, we need more men there. You come do it. I'm like, oh, man, really? My daughter's 13, or she was 12 at the time. okay, I'll do it. And so they got me in to do a character, and I was nervous. It was the most outside of my comfort zone that I've been in a long, long time. But I did it anyway because of her. But I actually started feeling this feeling after. It's like, wow, that was kind of fun to be a part of this presentation, this play, that it, you know, my role was so insignificant, but I had a role. But it was just something just to be a part of it and help to put it on from, I guess you'd say, front stage rather than backstage. You know, backstage all day for me. You know, I was always comfortable being behind the camera, all, you know, whatever. But when you
to play act these characters that you've been watching for so long, and actually putting your own spin on it, perhaps,
and then seeing people ask for the photo op with them and say, "Oh, you look so great," or whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm doing something for somebody. I'm moving somebody. You know, I'm more than just the background. I'm actually doing something. I think that's what motivates a lot of these cosplayers, is just that they, well, and a lot of them also are tied into charity groups, and they'll go to hospitals. And, you know, for the young kids, somebody that's dressed up as Captain America is Captain America.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's not.
When my kids dress up as their characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Man and
But
Captain
I mean,
America.
for like, if the kids go, like the cosplayers go to a hospital, and you've got Captain America and Wonder Woman and a couple of different cosplayers, to these kids in the hospital, that's who came to see them.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be Chris Evans. You know, it's just this person who's dressed as Captain America. Hey, we had Captain America come visit me today, and it's a big deal. And so I think that's it. That's the energy that drives the cosplayers. And, you know, obviously I'm open to more information that I ever, because I know a lot of the cosplayers, and you know, if they ever tell me anything different, I'd be open to that information too. But from what I have observed is that it really is just that chance to entertain. You know, they do it for themselves, but they really do it for others. I mean, it's just like very few people want to build this amazing Captain America, or like we've had people do Iron Man. I mean, just film quality Iron Man suits. And you're like, you built that? Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And they go and they walk around the event, and they're doing pictures every 5 seconds. And
I think I saw that last time I was there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The amount of time and energy people put into that.
Yeah.
And one of the models we've gotten acquainted with, we had her on the cover of Utah Stories a couple months ago. Her name's Bella Morgan, and she's this incredible cosplayer, and that's how she's built up her modeling career.
Oh, really?
And her following. And we'll probably show that on the screen in the video, but she just goes around and acts like Spider-Woman. And she gets, I guess she gets these promotional deals or something, but I don't know how you make a living out of it. But as it spun off into its own sort of industry where the best cosplayers have their own followings and they're able to do pro.
Yeah, it's just like it's social media influencers or whatever. I mean, that's all. Just you know, they can do it that way as long as they get a bunch of followers.
If they get enough followers and they're good enough at pretending to be that character, they'll get their own little gigs, I guess, on the side.
Yeah. Well, but also people will pay them to mention. I mean, I think for some of the social media, YouTube or TikTok people, they can get up to $500,000 for like a 30-second promo for some, makeup or whatever it may be. Yeah, some product.
Yeah,
So-
it's just you just look at the way Hollywood's moving. I mean, I guess that you could say this is part of the downside I see. When I was a kid growing up, I remember movies like on Golden Pond. I just showed that movie to my kids.
Yeah.
Like a story about a little kid and an old man connecting through fishing.
Yeah.
And then stories like, I mean, you see movies like Grease and kind of more riskier films like The Graduate. And you're just not seeing that many movies that are taking risks anymore. It seems like a lot of the films coming out are following that
The formula.
The formula of, let's make another DC or Marvel comic movie.
Yeah.
do you think that this phenomenon has led to that trend at all, or do you think it's more just directly related to the decline of movies in general?
I do think it's just a culmination of everything kind of coming together. You know, I mean, I think our events, the popularity at our events is based on the popularity of the movies.
Yeah.
You know, and the movies have become more popular, so therefore, you know, any social media stuff associated with it has become more popular, and it just becomes this kind of circle that it all builds on itself. And obviously, the places like Netflix or Amazon or and the theaters, of course, but they're betting on the stuff, the properties that are already proven to be popular in other areas. And so if you look at something and it's a book that's sold X number of copies, well, you're going to ride on that popularity when you create the film for it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it seems like it's a little bit of the lowest common denominator is action, violence, maybe some humor in it, and that works. And I have to say, like, out of all the movies, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy, the original one. I thought that was just so really well
clever.
Done. Yeah, and it kind of launched the career of Chris Pratt. Yeah, and he now he's a big famous actor, but it's like I had on the show the producer of Napoleon Dynamite, and that venture, which he gambled his own money on, he took this giant investment, and I think it was originally $100,000, and they made that movie. You just you see less of that happening. These risky ideas that are so kind of far out there, getting funding or buy-in by Hollywood producers or Hollywood production companies. Do you see any way that could be brought back again, and more risky gambles being taken?
I wonder. It's hard to say. You know, the one thing you will say is that it seems like now more than ever, there's just so much content out there.
Yeah,
there's just so many venues for the film and TV based content, and you know, like HBO releasing, you know, the movies at the same time they're at the theater, they're available on HBO. You can watch it from home or whatever. I mean, it's stuff like that. Or Disney's doing the same thing. You're just creating much more, I guess, opportunity, and maybe that's what's happening is these films like Napoleon Dynamite, maybe rather than going out and doing it on their own, they're able to get a pitch in with a Netflix or an Amazon and kind of get picked up, and then all of a sudden it kind of, maybe it was going to be a little different, you know, it was going to maybe stand out differently on their own. Once they get into the studio environment, all of a sudden it kind of goes through that formula, right? That machine, and they just takes it and tweaks it a little bit, makes it a little more, you know, I guess less risky, right? You know, the way you put it, it just let's add the formulas to it, and so I think that's probably what's happening. Is a lot of this content that maybe would have come out way outside. Because I think that even the festivals are struggling a bit, you know, with having the, you know, their truly original content coming through them.
Yeah, it just seems like it's more rare these days, and I don't know what can be done. I mean, I think the only major exception to that has come through one of the major studios has been Stranger Things.
Yeah,
we were talking about that. That was really a very original idea. And and having kids in it, that's usually not an idea that flies with Hollywood producers, but somehow that got greenlighted, and it was such a huge success and such a benefit, I think, to Netflix, because I was ready to cancel my Netflix subscription before that. So,
well, you know, I'll tell you a quick story about that. Is I had a manager contact me, you know, maybe a couple months after it came out, and it was right before our event that was coming up in September, and she's like, I've got to get you to bring in this Millie Bobby Brown to your show. I'm like, who's that? Well, look her up on IMDb, and you know, she's like #1 on IMDb and all that. But I hadn't seen the series yet, and it was just barely starting to pick up speed. And she literally asked me about 4 or 5 times about you need to bring her. Well, we have to fly in. Her parents first
She's
class.
11, right?
Yeah, she's 11. Yeah. You know, just kind of had this stuff around it that made it, from a business perspective as a promoter for the show, was just hard to kind of swallow. Like, okay, well, let's do this, and we kind of negotiated. So I was able to kind of negotiate the deal, so it wasn't quite where they came in originally, but it almost let that one go. And then by the time it came back around to actually get her again, she was too big. You know, she was just blew
really?
up. Yeah, so we did get her that. So we had her. So we had the first U.S. show for her. She had just a week or two before had done a show in England, and then fortunately got her booked into our show, and it was great and so sweet. I was blown away at how precocious she was. So smart. You know, here I walk in the room, and I'm sitting just on a table next to her. I go and sit down, and I make eye contact. She goes, "Well, hi, I'm Millie Bobby Brown." You know, just kind of reaches out to me and just boom, like, here's this young 12-year-old girl or whatever she at that time, and she just, and you talk to her, she sounds like an adult, and like, wow, how is this 12-year-old girl so grown up?
Yeah,
and that's the way she was. It's just right out there. Just,
yeah, she's an amazing actress.
Yeah.
You watch that show and you're like, where do they find this kid?
But you see, you start to, when you start associating with some of these people, you realize why these people are standing out from just the crowd.
Yeah.
You understand, you know, when you kind of just see how amazing and precocious she was, and just so with it, and so alert and talented and everything, you just see why she succeeded the way she did.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at the phenomenon of where Hollywood is moving towards, and I mean, unfortunately, I think that's a rare exception, but it seems like we're running into this idea: if anybody did anything wrong in the past or says anything wrong, or they just don't conform to that template of the woke mindset,
oh yeah,
they're just ousted. And they're just not going to be in any movies, and they're not going to be part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that is so unfortunate. And I think the latest examples I've seen of that are Kevin Hart disinvited from the Oscars because he had a tweet from, I think, 8 years ago talking about his kid playing with dolls, and he was worried about his kid, just making a joke about it. Yeah. And he's just taken out and said, nope, you're not hosting the Oscars because of that. And then the latest was the Mandalorian star. Her name escapes me, but she was a UFC fighter as well, and she was awesome.
Carino.
Gina Carano. Yeah, Gina Carano.
Yeah.
And she seems perfect for the convention, and like she has this huge fan base, and now she's ousted because she said something about comparing our divided country with pre-World War II Germany. Yeah. I mean, what's going on here?
It's unfortunate. It's unfair. I think there is a just an undertow of people trying to, and maybe they're righting some wrongs that have been long-standing, but it does seem like the balance is unfair. I was talking to a friend yesterday that's produced 8 or 9 films, and he told me, because he's producing some more, he has some more lined up coming down now, and he said no, so we have to cast. So when we're casting people, we don't look and say, well, we've wrote this script and this is who's in it. It's like, no, we need to cast in these groups. As you can imagine, the different thing. We've got to build
within the demographic groups they're targeting. You mean?
Well, no. I mean, it's basically, if you're, he's like you said, if you're a white female, you're not going to get roles in Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
That's
because it's not filling the
or white male or whatever.
The group identity that person has to be.
So the scales maybe have tipped.
Yeah.
And I guess being a straight female, you're not going to get that role. But if you're part of one of these, the other groups, which I love, one thing I love about our event is the inclusiveness. We don't care about what group you're from. It doesn't put you away from the convention. We're all there together, and we can enjoy the diversity and celebrate, your uniqueness, because everybody's unique, and we love that about the shows. But it does seem like, you know, and he just kind of, he called it like that. He said that Hollywood right now is so far the other way that the balance is, it's not being balanced. It's just saying, you know, you have to fit within one of these groups.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you know, you're not getting, if you're one of the mainstream groups, I guess it's mainstream, maybe not the right term, but just, you know, maybe the larger groups,
Yeah.
You don't fit in. You have to
if
make
you're
sure
of the oppressive class of white people who are supposedly all considered racist now or something like that. It's just the dominant ideology that's coming out of Hollywood these days. I've heard the statement that culture flows downstream from Hollywood, and so we're seeing more of this spreading to more channels and more areas. And the only thing I can compare it to is as a student of history, I saw what was happening as, you know, communism was getting this buildup, and we had they started having these accusations that certain Hollywood actors were secretly communist,
right,
and then they get blacklisted.
Yep.
And that's the only comparison you can kind of look back and see it to, where certain people are just deemed like canceled because of some thing they might have said wrong, and it just seems like if you're working in the industry these days and you happen to say the wrong thing, you're just gone.
You have to be careful. Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you find that you don't have to comply with those standards though at all with your convention?
Well, we definitely want to be, we like to be representative. So when we look at bringing in a lineup of guests, we do want to, you know, make sure that different groups are represented, because I feel like, you know what.
But I mean, if you brought in Gina Carano, you wouldn't then just be somehow associated with something negative, would you? Oh, you would?
Without a doubt, yeah.
Wow.
So Gina Carano, if we brought her in, we would run a risk of being upsetting a lot of people. Huh. Yeah. No,
so you'd be taking a big gamble doing that.
We would take a gamble.
Is that something you would do then, or not?
It's hard to say, because we had, in the past, we'd kind of dabbled with that a little bit, thinking that, hey, you know, we can bring in somebody that maybe this group isn't really fond of, but we know that this group is fond of. And it became, it created a bit of a firestorm, and we just, you know, just ended up not doing that, because it's hard, because certain people do feel that they're being ignored if we by bringing in a certain people, like I think with Gina, I think you run the risk of people saying, you don't understand what history's about, and you're not being mindful of the people that really were part of, you know, Nazi Germany and the atrociousness there, or whatever it may be. And
guilt by association is definitely a real thing.
And here's the thing: is personally, I don't know that she intended what people said that she intended. I think that she actually wasn't trying to offend people. I think.
Well, yeah, and it just seems like this reach to take a person's words, spin them in the worst possible way, and then report on that rather than what the person's face value of what their words are. It's just,
I've had people talk about, I've talked to them specifically about that. I said, go back and read it. Go back and read what she said. Well, she had said this. Well, go read that. And then, well, I can't find where she said what I just said. She said no, well, because she didn't say that.
Yeah, she didn't.
She said something different. But I don't want to be in the business of defending different people. But I wish that we could have the same inclusiveness with our lineups that we do with trying to do with the attendees. But I guess if, let's say somebody, I'm going to just make something up, but let's say somebody has been making fun of people with ADD. You know, that they made a career of making fun of people with ADD, and, you know, maybe somebody that has ADD is taking it personally when this person's invited to the convention, says, you know, that, you know, and we're, as convention promoters, we're creating a forum for that person to come in and
Yeah.
whatever. So that could be, you know, that, and I try to understand that side of it, because one thing I do when I put these conventions together is really understand. I want to understand the attendees. I want to understand what they want and what motivates them. And I do think that you know, there's a little more latitude to go with somebody that maybe I want to say more. I don't know if the word's liberal, but just let's say out there in a way that they could be outspoken for certain rights or whatever, and people that may be on the conservative side might say, well, I don't agree with that, but I think that it's like, okay, but we can still bring that person in. You know, good example, John Barrowman, who's been, you know, just openly gay person who's been one of our most favorite guests. People have loved, you know, we had votes after he's been in the convention, people like, bring him back, he's great. He's so great with the fans. He's just, it's so fun to watch him work. But if somebody is not in that camp, so to speak, they're still okay with him being there. You know, they may not go see him as a guest, but they're still okay with it. And I would say that's the one thing, is just looking at, you know, being open-minded to people from all sides. But I think we'll continue to figure out what's right. I don't know what's right on these things. I always try to listen to people and learn.
Yeah.
Try to stay away from, if there's controversy one way or the other, too much, I don't want to get in the middle of that. And we'll just, there's enough potential guests that are not necessarily in a controversial position that will go ahead and say, you know, we'll go ahead and we'll wait and see. Maybe that controversy dies down a little bit in a year or two. So let's go ahead and bring in these people.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, I just look at this and I really wonder, what is the end game going to be? Like, can we no longer talk about anything controversial? Because it's why I started this platform, so that people not necessarily agreeing with each other can sit down and talk. And it seems like now, even just doing that, you run the risk of offending a whole bunch of people who might want to cancel you because you're willing to talk about things.
So we could talk about masks or no masks, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, it is.
Yeah,
it's a very touchy thing, and you know, people are very adamant on their opinions. My only opinion is that we're all getting a lot of information that's distorted, because no matter what source we're getting it from or whatever, that the very truth and heart of the matter, I don't know that we really understand it, no matter where we are.
No, every lens you look through the mainstream media, it just seems so distorted, whether it's the left or the right. And then people buy into that distortion, and then their ideas about the whole world are distorted. And I just saw that today. I was in a coffee shop in Ogden and talking to these nice guys, just chatting with them. And then they say something like, yeah, if we just get rid of all the Trump supporters, this would be a great country. I'm like, oh, so that's half of the country. We get rid of you just think if we got rid of them? Yeah, that's the problem with this whole world today, the Trump supporters. And it's just unfortunate that
pretty close-minded. I mean, that would, you know, somebody could say the exact same thing on the other side of the coin, and it's like, no, we need diversity. We want to have. I'll say one thing that's been really beneficial that's come about over the last 5 or 10 years is, at least for me, I have a much more understanding and openness to everybody's individuality. You know, it's like, you don't need to be, you know, you don't need to follow a certain course. You can be open to be who you want to be, and you can have choices that you should, you know, be able to choose. You know, that the whole, you know, from a conservative background, you know, growing up LDS, you know, we talk about free agency. Well, this is the time to show that we believe in free agency, is that people should have a choice to be who they want to be. And, you know, if they choose one way or the other, that's their choice. You know, to the extent that they're not damaging other people. You know, free agency doesn't give somebody the right to walk out with a gun and start shooting people. You know, that's not what I'm talking about, free agency. You know, but to me is
being able to be who
you
are.
And how they want to wear their hair, how they want to dress.
Yeah.
be who they are.
And being able to recognize the intrinsic differences in people without casting this wide net over somebody or a group of people because they're just being who they are.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, well, I think that probably feels like a good place to wrap it up. So what's going to be special about this Comic-Con this year? What have you had to deal with mask mandates, or what do you?
Well, I can't say here and now that masks are going to be mandated, but everything that we're seeing with other conventions, it looks like something like that is going to probably be the case. So we probably will, I'd say, good possibility that masks are going to be required for the event this year. If you had asked me a month ago, I'd say no.
Yeah.
But now today, and especially seeing what's happened, encouraging people to get their COVID vaccine. If people don't believe in that, then they have a right to not do it, but encourage them to maybe get a COVID test.
You're not going to require a passport, are you?
Honestly, well, not a passport, but we've seen some conventions around the country, they're requiring either just proof of vaccination or a test within 72 hours.
Yeah.
We're looking at, we got a legal team looking at it. We're trying to do what's right for the community and realize that at this point, there is no right decision that's going to make everybody happy, right? Because if we don't do something like that, there's going to be a lot of people that won't be happy. They won't feel safe to be there.
Yeah.
But if we do something like that, there's another group of people that feel like that we're not being fair to them and that, they don't matter. And so this is one of those situations where there is no win to make everybody happy.
Yeah, that you really can't find a happy medium.
No,
but you're gonna make one side or the other upset, and you just have to.
And hopefully, there's enough people in the middle that are like, I may not agree with having to wear a mask, or I may not believe that it does what it should do, or whatever, but I'll do it to make people feel comfortable. And especially you look at the celebrities that are there, they're going to be meeting a lot of people, or they're going to be in the proximity of a lot of people. They want to feel safe, and whatever information they have to make them feel that they aren't necessarily going to be safe unless people are wearing masks, or they've been vaccinated, or they've been tested, or whatever, temperature check, all that. That's, we want them to feel good to be there. They're the, the vendors, all those people that are there, they're the ones that are making the event, and so we want to make sure that we look after them and keep them safe. And I'll say this is, I would hate to be a part of something that puts somebody through a lot of, bad health or death. And I don't want to be a part of it in that regard. I personally, I've had a vaccine, and, I guess I got to be careful about saying that. I just upset somebody somewhere by saying that, but I have.
The anti-vaxxers, that crowd, I'm just like, what planet do you want to live on where we don't try to cure the greatest pandemic we've had in 100 years?
Right.
Just, I don't get it.
Well, but it is something that it's hard to keep, because there are people that just feel like that's wrong, and there's legitimate concerns because of health concerns and all that. So I see all sides, but I'm just saying that even though I look at it, and I'm probably less cautious than most people I know in that regard. Cause, I've had the vaccine, but I'm not one that I'm not afraid to meet people and associate with them either. So I guess being a little more, easygoing there, but at the same time realizing that there's people that just won't come to the event with the crowd the size that it is unless they know that people are wearing masks, unless they've been vaccinated or have had a test or whatever, just those things, they won't feel comfortable being there. And I want to be mindful of that. I just trying to find the perfect medium. We're reaching out to the right people to help make these decisions, but I would say right now there's a good likelihood that masks are probably going to be required for the event.
Yeah, with what the mayor has said just a couple days ago, she wants to impose the mask mandates even with kids. Yeah. And now she's getting sued by a member of the state legislature, and he's trying to say a mayor does not have the right to say that. Yeah. Because we are not in emergency mode anymore. Yeah. Do you fall on one side or the other with that debate?
On that debate, I don't know the law. I mean, I don't. I have been told, because we are a private event, the decision rests with us. You know, we can do it. If we do have a mask mandate, we have to let people opt to maybe postpone their tickets for another event or do something with them. We can't force them to come to the event if wearing a mask is something that they don't want to do, and it's ruining the experience for them.
Yeah,
we've got to find a way to take care of it.
Utah County is full of maskers.
Yeah.
And we did a story about businesses in actually not Utah County, but Weber County that suffered getting spit in the face because they said wear a mask, and they were just absolutely raked over the coals because they were making customers wear masks if they hadn't had the vaccine. I think that still makes sense, but it's like craziness in here in Utah with just doing
it's that
basic
way everywhere.
measures. Yeah, I guess it is. I guess it's all over the country now.
Yeah.
But what big headliners, big celebrity guests are you having this year?
Well, I'll say this: it's been one of the hardest years to book talent from the standpoint of the really big, the very expensive, like the Tom Hollands of the world. They've been harder because they're all so busy. They were so far behind on the filming and everything that these guys are booked back to back to back. And so working them in, we still have a few lines out on a couple of them, but we should have had somebody announced by now, but right now we don't. But we do have probably one of the most solid lineups that we've had, and I think of all the years where it's just we've got something for almost everybody, but they're just a lot of solid, fun guests.
Yeah.
And so we are still hoping for that one or two, major headliner, but if we don't, we still have a great lineup.
And people will still be dressing up and cosplaying, and it's like you come out and see the show of the people dressed up. That's why I went a few years ago.
People watching is the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on the program, and good luck, man.
Well,
we canceled our Made in Utah Fest. This is a festival we usually put on every year, and we just decided we could not, with all the uncertainty that's out there, we thought we'll just have to wait till things die down. And I think it's really courageous of you to just move forward, plug away, and keep going.
Well, it's hard, because you do bring up a good point that, do you move ahead with the event? I'll say this is, from a mental health perspective, there's a lot of people that just need to have these experiences.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that I think there would be consequences with people if we didn't have it.
Yeah.
And it's weird to say that about an event, you can think, but I believe.
Oh, absolutely. And I think everybody can take their own individual risk assessment.
Yes.
I think that's what the mayor probably needs to understand.
Yeah.
We know the risks. We know what it is, and we can make that assessment based on all the news information we've taken in on it. So
yeah, and that's the one thing is I had another interview, and people were talking about guests or attendees, and one thing is I don't want anybody to be there that feels like they're taking too much of a risk. I would rather have people stay home, even if we have half the attendance what we're used to having, which, by the way, we're not trending that way. We're still trending strong. But if we did, I'd be fine with it. And, may not be, where we need to be financially, but we can make do. But I just would rather have people stay home and be comfortable than to come to the event and
if you're in the risk category, don't go to something like that because obviously there's some risk. But if you're young and you're healthy, you're strong, you don't have comorbidities, everybody can make that assessment on their own.
And if you've been vaccinated, that helps some, and if you're going to wear a mask, that helps some. And that's one thing I am hearing about the other conventions around the country where they have just had people wear masks. People are saying it was fine. It was okay. We wore a mask. It was fine. And everybody was fine with it. You get to take off the mask for a second to do a photo op with the celebrity, but we do probably have a plexiglass in the middle, and, people will go in, and maybe not everybody will have plexiglass, but I think, most of them, if not all of them, will. But they can go and stand next to them, do a photo, and then go on. And, it may not be the same where they do the big squeeze with some, because some of the celebrities are fine giving a hug, but it's still the overall experience is great. And so I'm hearing really fantastic things about how it's going, you know, even with those requirements.
Nice.
So,
yeah. Well, we didn't get into the whole trade dress lawsuit. Maybe for next time we have you on. I'd like to talk about that a little more. But yeah, thanks, Dan, so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, being a part of this program, liking and sharing our videos. You know, 100 episodes is a major milestone for us. We actually started this podcast 2.5 years ago, thinking we'd, you know, blast out episodes. It would be so easy, so simple. But podcasting, my friends, is difficult. It's very hard. And we are so grateful for all of you who have been supportive of what we're doing, providing authentic local journalism to Utah and trying to really present both sides of the big issues facing the environment and the quality of life here in Utah. And so with that, I want to present to you our two sponsors of this program and our brand new sponsor, which is Wasatch Beers. Wasatch Brewery was started by Greg Scherf almost 35 years ago. I got to know Greg pretty well when I very first started the magazine. He was one of our very first supporters and sponsors. Just a super awesome guy. And I did these video interviews with him initially because I wanted to do a documentary film about beer in Utah. And what he did was absolutely instrumental in paving the way for allowing craft beer into Utah because he actually changed the laws working with the Utah State Legislature. His stories, his irreverent antics of egging on the 2002 Olympic Games by being the unofficial sponsor of the games, the stories he tells are so awesome, and I'm super excited to be able to share those with you in the coming weeks and months ahead. That's going to be leading up to their 35th year anniversary, which is going to be in October throughout the rest of this year, and they're going to be releasing new beers. You can check it all out by going out and visiting wasatchbeers.com and see what they're doing with their beers, and also go visit their brew pubs, which are at the Salt Lake City International Airport, in the middle of Sugar House, and then also on the top of Park City's Main Street. Go check them out. The program is also brought to you by Canyon Meadows Grass-Fed Beef. I've said it many times, I'll say it again. If you've not tried grass-fed beef, you absolutely need to give it a shot. We just recently got our entire cow purchase for the year from them. We filled up our freezer, and we eat it every single week, several times a week, and we absolutely love it. We can't go back now because their product is good for the earth, it's good for the environment, and it tastes absolutely delicious. Go try the difference. Go visit cmrbeef.com/Utah Stories for a special discount for all of our listeners and watchers. With that, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.